Hi, everybody, and welcome back. It is Sunday, and here in my household, it is quiet for a change. It is still messy, but will likely remain so for the next few weeks, so I have made peace with it. I had a few interesting online discussions over the last few days, which, in a way, I want to share with you. Lately, I have been receiving many questions which I deem slightly strange. Questions like, what do you think this or that member of the royal family is really like? Or do you think this one is as bad or as good as the media makes him out to be, etc.? I think those questions are a little strange because I do not know any of them personally, and nor am I qualified in any way to do a character analysis. But I thought, why not try? I have been familiar enough with the royal family over a long time to at least give it a go. And perhaps it will help us to understand Harry and a lot of the others a little better. And please do not click out just because I'm going to start with the king. This is me, not the YouTuber talking, but just me, a mother, a daughter. So maybe you'll be surprised. And besides, I would love your feedback. When it comes to Charles, I do not think he is all bad. Absolutely not. I think, in the first place, he had been very conflicted for most of his life between what is expected of him and what he wanted, believed, and were interested in. And I think it had been hard on him. I think, like any child, he learned how to play people to get his way, and because of who he was, he got very little resistance. He always had someone he could turn to fulfill his needs, whether a nanny, his granny, or an aide or a bodyguard. However, I don't think his emotional needs were always met, or at least not in the correct way. And therefore, to this day, we see him as this conundrum of, on the one hand, being this airy fairy bloke who talks to plants and turkeys, the compassionate grandfather, and the jovial host, but also the man who do not think twice to get involved in a not so kosher deal when it benefits him and his interest, a man who slightly overestimates his own intelligence. In other words, a man who can be ruthless at times and who can demand to get his way, almost like a 2-year old's foot stomping tantrum. And I do not think any of this is fake either. I think the king can be as kind and loving as he can be selfish, demanding, and ruthless. I think it depends often on who he is dealing with, whether he feels confident that he can manipulate them or not, or whether he can yield power over them or not. And I'm not talking about his power as king, but about his mental state. I think he can be loyal to those he truly cares about and can just as easily turn his back on those he do not truly care about. I think he has made many mistakes, but it does not keep him up at night. I think his conscience has been suppressed a long time ago because he has seldom been held accountable for his actions, and that started in early childhood. When it comes to Queen Consort Camilla, overall, I think she is very typical of girls and women raised in her era and her social group. Girls just started to place more value on their education and independence when she was a teenager and young woman. Yet, their main quest, at least for most of them, was to marry well. She grew up in an era where women were discovering their strengths, yet it was also still widely accepted that they were the ones who took most of the responsibility when it came to the children and the home. Do I think Camilla can be snarky or bitchy? Yes, but not because she is necessarily a horrible person, but because it was fashionable for women after the Second World War to be more outspoken and cocky, to smoke and to drink. It was considered cool. Ultimately, I think Camilla desired what everyone else did: love, a family, and stability. Like Charles, I think Camilla was often in conflict over what she desired and what society expected from her. Unlike her husband, though, she did not have the same amount of people to turn to. Charles could turn to his grandmother, his uncle, Lord Mountbatten, his bodyguard, nanny, housekeeper, aides, and even his sycophant fans. Camilla couldn't until she married Charles, and by then she was middle-aged and set in her ways. So I see Camilla as someone with a mind of her own, strong opinions, but someone who does not always express them. Maybe more like the Queen herself in that regard. I think she is loving and caring, but not tactile at all, and therefore can come across as cold sometimes. I think from time to time she does become a little rebellious and will do something small just to please herself and show herself that she can. I think she's the type of person who will first observe a situation before stepping into it, and not because she fears anything, but because it boosts her confidence to be prepared. Now, I know some of you find this a little boring, but give it half a listen if you can't otherwise, because I will get to William and Harry in a while, and I think you will find my opinion surprising. So hang in there and let me quickly run through other members of the royal family the two of them were in close contact with over their lifetime. I'm aware that my opinion on the Yorks differ vastly from that of most other people. For one thing, I do not think Andrew and Fergie are the idiots many people think they are. As a matter of fact, I think Sarah is one of the most authentic of all the extended family members. Impulsive and led by her emotions, she made glaring mistakes. But it was her good heart and the fact that she does not have one single malicious bone in her body that she survived. Sometimes silly, always impulsive, but never malicious. I think that describes Sarah, at least in my opinion. When it comes to Andrew, I am not going to argue that he is not entitled and sometimes to the point of being perceived as rude. I think all the royals are, or can, or could be, even the Queen herself, because face it, they are born knowing their power and influence. They are born with servants and staff at their beck and call. So why wouldn't they be? I think Andrew was faced with a whole different and rather confusing scenario growing up. He was as royal as his brother Charles, but not subjected to the same limitations or the same expectations. In a way, some would see it as having the best of both worlds. But is it? I don't think so. Brothers being competitive is nothing new. But what happens if you are competing with a ghost? What if you are doing everything you can and do perform better, but nothing will ever top your brother because he was born to be top dog. Imagine not being able to marry who you want to, not being able to go where you want to go, do what you want to do when you want to do it, but still never being able to reach that top position, even if and when you outperform your brother, or in our cases, our colleagues, in most ways. I do not find it strange that Andrew got himself into scrapes, or that he was perceived as arrogant at times. I think I would have been a real sourpuss at times. I sometimes sense a sadness around Andrew, and I think if he had the maturity and wisdom that he has now, 30 or 40 years ago, his life would have turned out differently. And I think he would have been a big success in whatever he chose to do. Instead, he felt adrift and a little lost, and that combined with his title and a sense of entitlement led him to make the mistakes he made. Princess Anne, when it comes to her personality, I think her personality is a carbon copy of her father's. And that is perfectly normal for daughters who have fathers with a strong personality and who have a good relationship with their dads. Of all the Queen's children, I think Edward is the most normal and even keel. And that is because he was so much younger than his brothers and never felt the need to compete with them. The Queen and Prince Philip were more settled in their roles when he was born, and therefore he never knew any other life than that of his mother being queen and having the duties she had. And now we have William and Harry and their personalities coming to the front in the public and the media. There are many things to admire when it comes to William, but do I think he is as great and as wonderful as we would like to think he is? No, I don't. I think William inherited some of his father and mother's good qualities and was lucky not to inherit some of the bad or worst qualities. But not for 1 minute do I believe he is close to being a saint. And I do believe that he has some less than admirable qualities. I think as he is growing older, he is indeed growing a sense of entitlement as it sinks in that he will be king one day. I do believe that he is very stubborn and that he has a temper, perhaps more like his grandfather's than his father's. I think, like his father, he is not too keen on listening to or taking advice. I think he is a better father to his children, not because of who he is, but because he had a little less responsibility and duties, because he had only just become the Prince of Wales and the Duke of Cornwall recently after his grandmother passed away. I think he had been a better husband to Catherine than his father was to his mother, and not because he is a better man, but because his wife is his intellectual equal and equals him in maturity. Having said that, I do not think he is the easiest man to live with, and I do not think his marriage is a bed of roses every hour of every day. I think to date, the Middletons can be credited for a large portion of the success of the marriage, as they provide the support and level of sanity and normalcy the marriage will need from time to time. And even so, I think Catherine does still have a hard time sometimes. William is a flirt and does not always have the sensitivity to curb it. And I do not think he keeps his temper as much in check at home as he does in public. Fortunately, he has a little more intelligence than his father, is more level headed than his mother, and has inherited his grandmother and grandfather's sense of duty. And then there is Harry. Now, understand me well. I do not approve of Harry's conduct and have always foreseen problems in his future. His sulking, his impulsive behavior, similar to that of his mother, was a good indicator of his future. But like William, he also inherited some of his parents' good qualities, like empathy, and specifically from his mother, he inherited a sense of fun, humor, and mischievousness. And that was Harry's saving grace all his life. However, having said all of that, I do think Harry has good reason for some of the bitterness he is experiencing towards his family. Harry was William's wingman. Harry did sometimes take the blame when he and William got into scrapes together. But when the time came for Harry to need a wingman, he had to go look elsewhere. I also do believe that Harry was emotionally neglected by Charles. Firstly, due to Charles's work and duties. Secondly, due to his relationship with Camilla, but most importantly, because of the generation gap. As children, we all heard the words, man up, get over it, or stop crying and whining, it's not going to help. Our parents, those of us who are 40 or 50 and older, did not subscribe to all these psychological and emotional dogma which is around and available today. I believe Harry when he says his father said things like, it was good enough for me, it's good enough for you. Because that was how we were brought up by my own father. Bad behavior was punished, and there was no such thing as seeking the help of a psychiatrist to help explain it or to make excuses for it. I told you this before. I was diagnosed with ADHD at the age of 37, and what a relief it was for me, as until then I was constantly told that I was difficult and that no one in my family understood me. I think aside from his father's lack of time to deal with his son's issues and problems, Harry had a similar experience. Of course, Harry had it even worse because he lost his mother at a critical age and on the cusp of becoming a teenager. King Charles learned his parenting skills from his own father, and Prince Philip, rest his soul, had a very difficult childhood and believed that his son had to toughen up in order to weather the storms that life could bring. So, yes, I do believe there was an element of neglect and a lack of support, not in the conventional way of not being provided with material things, and certainly not in an abusive way, but definitely in an emotional and psychological way. Currently, I think that both William and Harry, more so Harry than William, displays a facet of their psyche which is missing. when compared to other people, both in and outside of their families. And I think neither of them are even aware of it. To a large extent, and everyone else aside, after Princess Diana's death, William and Harry only had each other, and as opposites, in a way, they complemented each other and filled the gaps in each other. Only with each other could they cry or be naughty or fight and rid themselves of their frustrations. And now both of them are missing that part of themselves. Harry, I think, is emotionally softer than his brother, and he is now a confused soul who ventured into the depths of evil, because I do believe there is evil in Meghan and her mother. Harry, I think, is growing angrier and more frustrated, and there are moments when he comes back to himself and when he is sad and does not understand why. He misses something or someone. I think he thinks it's his mother, but it is not. I think he fluctuates between feeling sad and lonely to being angry and spiteful and even filled with hate. And I think he's tired. I think neither William nor Harry consciously know it, but each of them need their brother. They need to cry together or fight it out so they can heal and move on and each do their own thing. I think William is lonely and frustrated despite having a wonderful wife, his work, and children. And I think that is why he is so angry at Harry and why everything Harry says and does actually touches him and angers him. Because each time he experienced that emptiness and sense of loss which he cannot understand or explain. For the most crucial part of their lives, William and Harry were both brothers and friends. And I think and feel that regardless of what was said and done, the biggest barrier between the brothers is Meghan Markle. She is the wall too high, the bridge too far, and the river too wide. And I think she was like the encroaching or invader weed that is destroying the garden. Now, I'm not psychic and cannot predict the future, but looking at the family members present at last night's Royal British Legion Festival of Remembrance, I felt a profound sense of sadness at what was lost and missing. And for me, it was more than the Queen and Prince Philip, but instead there was a sense of, I don't know, an atmosphere of coldness and emptiness. I wished I could run up to them and tell them all to go home, to forget everything and just go be normal people. Cry, scream, fight, laugh, swear, sleep late, or stay in your pajamas and eat chocolate all day. Just be for a change. Take those masks off and walk around as naked and unadorned as you will be the day you meet your Maker. So, my dear friends, that is my take on it. Maybe it is my own bit of end of year depression which played itself out here, but I can't help but look at that group on that balcony last night and feel that there's something missing in the air around them. Okay, now you may not agree with anything I've said in this video, but like I've said so often, this is my channel, my opinion, and that is all me as a person and human being can bring you. So, guys and girls, I have some more research and all kinds of things waiting for you for the week to come. So, until we meet again on the next video, please take good care of yourselves. Bye.